On the tee box, professional golfers are basically physicists. I mean, you watch them out there, and it is just pure
Oh,
science.
absolutely. It's all data.
Right. They're talking about launch angles, spin rates, smash factors, wind vectors. But then the second those exact same players step onto the putting green, they turn into mystics.
Yeah, the science completely disappears.
Exactly. Suddenly it's all about, vibe and feel and touch and like magic in the hands. It is as if the green is this sacred space where data just goes to die.
Which is wild, honestly.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. For you listening right now, whether you're trying to win your club championship or, just beat your friends on a Sunday, our mission today is incredibly specific.
Yes, very specific.
We are unpacking the actual science of putting performance. We're looking at why distance control, not reading greens, not stroke mechanics, but distance control is the absolute most critical skill you can master to reduce your scores.
Because that's where the strokes are really lost.
Right. I mean, we've all been there. Right. You're staring down a 50-footer. You take this massive, aggressive practice swing, and then you step up and basically just bunt the ball 20 feet.
Yeah, the classic decel.
Exactly. And you're left holding the putter, wondering if your arm is just like suddenly disconnected from your brain. So today, we are talking about saving at least one full stroke per round through a structured, repeatable, data-driven system.
And that shift in perspective, from mysticism to measurement, that's exactly where we need to start.
Okay.
Because putting is not a mystery. It is absolutely not based on subjective feel. I mean, that is perhaps the single biggest misconception in the entire sport.
Wait, really? The biggest?
Oh, without a doubt. Putting is, at its core, a precise neuromuscular calculation. It's essentially a biological math problem.
A biological math problem.
Exactly. It's a skill that can be understood, trained, and executed with absolute precision when the right system is applied. If we treat putting as this abstract art form, we're leaving elite performance entirely to chance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if putting isn't just feel, then we have to answer that really painful question I just brought up.
Right.
Why do so many amateurs, and honestly even touring professionals when the pressure is on, why do they struggle so badly with leaving long putts criminally short?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
You see a player staring down that 50-footer, the stroke looks incredibly smooth, and the ball just dies halfway there. Like, what is actually happening in the human brain in that exact moment?
Well, what you're witnessing there is not a failure of technique. The mechanics of the stroke are usually perfectly fine.
Right, their stroke looks good.
Exactly. What you're seeing is a failure of neurology. Specifically, it's something called the protective bias.
The protective bias.
Yeah, this is a deeply ingrained survival mechanism, and it's driven directly by the amygdala, which, as you might know, is the part of the brain responsible for processing fear and threat.
Wait, the fear center of the brain.
That's the one.
So essentially, you're telling me my brain is treating a 10-foot downhill return putt with the same level of sheer terror as, I don't know, a saber-toothed tiger jumping out of the bushes.
I mean, in a literal neurological sense, yes.
That is insane.
It is. But the amygdala does not distinguish between physical danger to your life and social or psychological danger to your ego or, your scorecard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when you are standing over a long putt, your brain scans the environment and perceives a massive threat. And the threat isn't the distance to the hole.
What is it then?
It's the perceived risk of what happens if you hit it too hard. If you blast the ball 8 feet past the hole, you now face a highly stressful, score-damaging situation.
Oh, right. The dreaded 3-putt.
Exactly. Your amygdala recognizes that threat and triggers an instinctive, involuntary physiological response to just underhit the ball. It literally alters your muscle tension and interrupts your fluidity.
So it's basically an unconscious survival strategy designed to keep you safe from the pain of a missed return putt.
You nailed it. That's exactly what it is.
So we are essentially driving a high-performance sports car, but we have the parking brake pulled all the way up because we're like subconsciously terrified of getting a speeding ticket.
That is a great analogy, yes.
But let me actually push back on this a little bit. Because isn't safety a good thing in golf?
Yeah.
I mean, golf is a game of managing misses, right?
Right.
If I leave that 50-footer 5 feet short, at least I am not blowing it way past the hole off the green and guaranteeing a 3-putt. Isn't my brain actually doing me a massive favor by keeping me conservative?
I mean, you're touching on exactly why this is so incredibly hard to overcome. Safety absolutely serves a basic function if your only goal is to avoid embarrassment.
Right.
But here's the thing. It creates a severe performance ceiling. By constantly playing it safe, the athlete is prevented from fully engaging with the actual physics of the green.
Because they're holding back.
Yes. You stop calculating what is required to actually reach the destination, and you lock yourself into this reactive, fear-based mode of guessing. You aren't trying to make the putt. You're just trying not to miss it too badly.
Right, you're playing not to lose rather than playing to win.
Exactly. You're surviving, not competing. And to break out of that survival mode and achieve elite status, to really master distance control a player, has to activate what we call a prefrontal override.
A prefrontal override. Okay, what's that?
So the prefrontal cortex is the logical, calculating part of your brain. You have to consciously use it to bypass those deeply ingrained, fear-based motor patterns. You have to intentionally expand your energy comfort zone.
So you literally have to train your central nervous system to tell your amygdala to stand down.
That's it, yes.
Man. So if we know we can't just talk our way out of this amygdala response because, let's face it, standing over the ball and whispering, "Don't be scared" to yourself, never works.
No, it never does.
How do we actually hack that neurological reflex out on the practice screen?
Well, you have to train it out through a process called neuromuscular calibration.
Okay.
This is the foundational theory, really the neuro-athletic basis of elite distance control. We have to build a precise, physical internal reference for excess energy.
Got it.
Now, look at a typical practice green. What do you see? You see players standing in one spot with a bucket of 50 golf balls, hitting the exact same putt over and over, prioritizing repetitive mechanics.
Yeah, that's what everyone does.
Right. But that traditional practice completely fails here.
Because mechanics don't help you adapt to variable green speeds.
Precisely. Hitting 50 balls from the same spot just numbs the brain. It checks out. You need to systematically explore the upper limits of stroke force.
Okay.
By doing that, the brain shifts from that fear-based guessing we just talked about to a proactive, precise energy calculation. And it bases that on a known, calibrated intensity scale.
So this brings us to the actual system outlined in our sources, the Puttalize methodology. And the setup details here are incredibly specific.
So very specific, yeah.
I really want to break these down for you listening because the data integrity required to actually hack your brain is fascinating. First, you have to find a completely flat section of the green.
Right.
Why? Because you have to eliminate slope and break from the brain's energy calculation. We are isolating the variables.
Exactly. Keep it pure.
Second, the distance. You set up 15 to 20 meters away from a hole, so that's about 50 to 65 feet. We are deliberately challenging long-range proprioception.
Yes.
Which, for those who aren't neuroscientists, simply means your brain's subconscious 3D map of where your body is in space and how much force it needs to generate.
Perfect definition.
And then third, the equipment. You don't dump that bucket of 50 balls on the green. You use exactly 3 golf balls.
The 3 balls constraint is absolutely vital, and it is entirely about cognitive psychology.
How so?
Well, if you have a pile of 20 or 50 balls right next to your feet, you will inevitably fall into mindless, rapid-fire repetition. You'll just start raking the ball over and hitting it without thinking.
Yeah, just going through the motions.
Exactly. The brain just checks out.
Yeah.
But using exactly 3 golf balls creates artificial scarcity, which leads to a highly condensed feedback loop.
Oh, I see.
Every single stroke matters immensely. Because you only have 3, you are forced to process the data from stroke 1 before you initiate stroke 2. You know, you only have 2 chances left to correct the physical data.
That is brilliant. And then there is the physical posture, which ties directly into the visual connection. The sources emphasize that your eyes must be directly over the ball with your head at a strict 90-degree angle to the ground.
Yeah, that postural alignment is completely non-negotiable.
Really? Why is it so strict?
Because having the head at exactly 90 degrees optimizes binocular depth perception, meaning both of your eyes are receiving symmetrical information about the distance. But more importantly, it minimizes parallax error.
Okay, let me actually jump in with an analogy for parallax error to make this crystal clear for everyone.
Thanks, dude.
It's like sitting in the passenger seat of a car, right? And you're glancing over at the driver's speedometer. Because of your angle, it looks like the needle is pointing at 70 miles per hour, but the driver is actually only doing 60.
Yes, exactly.
Your brain is receiving bad data because of your physical position in the car. And in putting, bad data equals the wrong distance.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. If your eyes are inside the ball or your head is tilted even slightly, you are looking at the hole from the passenger seat. Your brain is registering a false distance.
Wow.
But the setup is really only the beginning. Once that strict 90-degree head position is established, the athlete must deliberately turn their gaze toward the hole.
Which, I have to point out, completely dismantles that generic just look at the hole and hit it golf tip we've all heard a million times. It turns looking at the target into a strict visual spatial encoding process.
Yes, it is entirely about data collection.
Yeah.
That deliberate visual action is essential because it encodes that specific 15 to 20 meter distance into the brain's internal spatial system.
Okay.
The brain is actively registering the environment. And this specific registration allows the neuromuscular system to convert that visual input, the exact distance it sees, into a precise physical energy output for the stroke.
So it's locking it in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It establishes a stable biological reference for the green conditions of that specific day, allowing for immediate adaptation without ever needing to tweak the mechanics of your stroke.
Okay, so setting up perfectly, eliminating parallax error, and visually encoding the space is step one. But the actual execution of this drill, exercise 3, as it is called in the protocol, it sounds completely counterintuitive to everything we've ever been taught about golf.
It does sound strange at first, yes.
Because if I understand this correctly, the goal of this exercise isn't actually to get the ball close to the hole.
Right. The exercise is called controlled overdistance. The execution phase is intentionally designed to exceed the athlete's natural comfort zone.
See, we're going past the hole on purpose.
Yes. We are deliberately breaking through that instinctual, amygdala-driven ceiling to expand the body's proprioceptive awareness of what a really long stroke actually feels like.
Okay, let's walk through the exact mechanics of the stroke then. The player takes their setup, they've encoded the distance perfectly, then they move the putter back to the natural limit of their comfort, like the exact spot where their brain instinctually screams at them to stop for a 20-meter putt.
Exactly.
And then, crucially, they must deliberately expand the backswing slightly beyond that instinctual limit. But the sources are clear here. They have to maintain absolute rhythmic integrity.
That is key.
There can be no sudden hitting impulse or like an aggressive jab at the ball. The extra energy has to come solely from the increased amplitude, the length of the stroke.
And that is the single most difficult part for a player to master. Expanding the amplitude without altering the rhythm.
Because it feels so unnatural.
Completely. When golfers want to hit the ball further, their first instinct is to apply force to sort of jab at it with their hands. Here, you are forcing the body to experience a longer, fluid stroke. The rhythm stays identical to a 10-foot putt. Only the length of the pendulum changes.
But wait, let me jump in here and really challenge this premise, because if I am out on the practice green hitting 20-meter putts and I am deliberately blasting them past the hole right before I go out for a competitive round,
Right.
isn't that going to completely ruin my touch? I mean, isn't watching my ball race 10 feet past the cup going to destroy my confidence and trigger the exact amygdala panic we're trying to avoid?
That is the most common concern, by far. But it requires a complete paradigm shift in how we view practice. In this specific protocol, a ball rolling clearly past the hole is not an error.
It's not.
No, it is a critical, highly valuable data point. We have to completely separate the physical outcome of the drill from the emotional baggage of a missed putt on the golf course. You are intentionally calibrating your error margin.
Calibrating the error margin. Okay, explain that. What does that actually look like in the brain?
Think of it like mapping a pitch-black room. If you step inside and only ever take 2 cautious steps forward before backing up, you have no idea how big the room actually is.
Right, you're just guessing.
Exactly, you're just guessing. But by deliberately hitting the ball past the hole with a rhythmic stroke, you are finding the far wall of the dark room.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Right. By experiencing too much energy, the brain definitively maps the upper boundary. Once your nervous system knows exactly what too much feels like, calculating just enough becomes significantly more accurate.
Because you have the full picture now.
Yes. You are refining the energy to roll mapping. The brain builds a precise correlation between stroke length and roll distance, and that completely eliminates the need to guess.
So it's literally a sensory reset. You are purposely experiencing the extreme boundary so the middle comes into sharp focus. And the sources note this is a phase 1 foundational exercise. It requires immense discipline, just 3 to 6 minutes, daily, and it must precede any technical work, any mechanical drills, or any competitive play.
It has to come first.
Right. You have to tune your vestibular and visual systems to the environment before you try to perform. And just to clarify for everyone listening, tuning your vestibular system simply means letting your inner ear, your body's internal gyroscope and GPS, basically sync up with the actual physical space around you.
Yeah, that's spot on.
You are calibrating the hardware before you run the software.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. Before you worry about the path of your putter or your grip pressure, you have to develop a higher calibration resolution in the brain.
Makes total sense.
And understanding that upper boundary of energy improves your accuracy across all distances, not just the 20-meter putts. Once the brain understands the maximum required force, a 30-foot putt suddenly feels like a chip shot.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time on brain calibration and long-distance energy mapping, but let's transition from the macro to the micro here. Let's link this expanded brain calibration to the actual physical goal at the hole itself.
Let's do it.
Because once the brain knows how to generate the right energy, what is the exact speed the ball should be traveling when it actually reaches its destination? Because a putt isn't just about distance, right? It's about how the ball interacts with the cup.
This brings us to the concept of terminal speed. Elite putting performance is ultimately defined by how the golf ball behaves at the exact moment it interacts with the physical hole.
Okay.
If a ball doesn't drop dead into the dead center of the cup, the speed at which it passes the hole dictates what we call the effective size of the hole.
Let me break the physics of this down for you listening, because this is where the science gets incredibly practical. Think about what happens when a putt is dying. If a putt is just barely trickling as it reaches the cup, it is highly susceptible to every tiny physical imperfection around the edge of the hole.
Spike marks, footprints, everything.
Exactly. Footprints from other players, the grain of the grass. The ball bobbles, it gets knocked off line. Conversely, if you absolutely hammer the putt, it might catch the edge of the cup, but it's moving too fast for gravity to pull it down into the hole.
Right, it violently lips out.
Exactly. But an optimal terminal speed effectively enlarges the hole. It holds its line straight through those footprints and imperfections, and if it's slightly off-center, it is still traveling at the precise speed that allows gravity to capture it and pull it in, rather than aggressively lipping out.
And that terminal speed is the ultimate control parameter in elite putting. The next performance layer of the pedalized methodology introduces a highly specific, measurable scientific standard for this.
And what is that standard?
The optimal speed past the hole is quantified mathematically as 3 to 4 rotations per second, or RPS.
3 to 4 rotations per second past the hole. That is the magic metric.
That is the absolute gold standard of distance control. A ball rolling at 3 to 4 RPS ensures the exact energy profile required for maximum capture probability.
So it's fast enough to hold its line.
Yes, moving fast enough to hold its true line against the grain of the grass, but slow enough to fall in from the sides if your read was slightly off. It gives you the widest possible margin for error.
So we are moving from this vast 65-foot spatial calculation of energy all the way down to a microscopic measurement of rotations per second at a 4¼ inch cup. I mean, it is incredible.
It really is. But here is how we connect this to the bigger picture. That 3 to 4 RPS metric is why the over-distance calibration we just discussed is so utterly critical.
Right.
It is the essential prerequisite. If you have not calibrated your upper boundary of energy, if you haven't done that 15 to 20 meter exercise to find the far wall of the darkroom, you will never instinctively find that optimal 3 to 4 RPS terminal speed zone.
Because your brain is still guessing.
Exactly. Your brain will still be guessing. You will either leave it short out of fear from the amygdala, or you will blow past out of a total lack of proprioceptive awareness.
Wow.
Mastering the upper boundary of energy is the only thing that enables the athlete to consistently and fearlessly deliver the ball at the exact optimal terminal speed.
It is brilliant because it connects the macro to the micro so seamlessly. You cannot have the micro precision at the hole without the macro awareness of the environment.
Exactly.
Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked today, because it really is a complete reframing of how we should approach the greens. Elite putting, true length control, isn't about finding a better grip or buying a heavier putter or blindly hoping for better touch today.
Not at all.
It is about actively expanding your brain's understanding of energy. It is about deliberately mapping your stroke length to the roll distance, defining your upper boundaries so clearly that you completely eliminate hesitation and guesswork.
Yes.
We are talking about deliberately moving from an amygdala-driven, fear-based stroke that leaves you 30 feet short to a prefrontal, data-driven execution. No parking brake, no restriction, just a fully trained neuromuscular system translating vision into precise, undeniable energy.
And, this raises an incredibly important question, one that goes far beyond the practice green.
Oh, where are we going with this?
Well, we've seen how the amygdala's protective bias artificially limits an athlete's physical performance, essentially sabotaging their true potential just to keep them safe from a perceived failure.
Right.
It makes you wonder, in what other areas of our professional or personal lives are we unconsciously underhitting the ball?
Wow.
Like, where else are we artificially limiting our amplitude, playing it safe, and severely capping our own potential just to avoid the discomfort of a long return trip?
That is a profound thought to end on. Seriously, sometimes the biggest risk we take is refusing to find out where our upper boundaries actually are. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
The next time you head out to the course, leave the bucket of 50 balls behind. Grab exactly 3 golf balls, find a flat 20-meter expanse of green, and start showing your brain what is actually possible. Take care.